Hi, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with episode number 17 of the Yakking podcast. This is where we talk about life, business, and more. We bring you tips and ideas for a changing world, and the world is really changing right at the moment. As usual, we have another very interesting guest for you today, but first let me welcome my co-host down in Kitchener, Ontario, Kathleen Beauvais. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
Hello, Peter. I'm very well. How is everyone?
We're good up here. I'm going to let you take it away.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us and tuning in. We so appreciate you. Yes, we have a special guest with us today. Her name is Joanne Nesbitt. Joanne, welcome. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, first of all, for even having me on the show. I'm so honored. And you talked to me about my life. Where do I begin? I have been so fortunate. I was born to a coal miner, and my mother was a tobacco factory worker. And, when you come from poor beginnings, I never realized I was poor. But when you come from poor beginnings, you understand a lot. And I was so fortunate because I've had so many mentors who've helped me along in life. And I just feel then when I wrote my book that I had to keep paying it forward. And I was driven by that methodology to pay forward what the sailors told me and did something for them, because people have done something for me all my life and they've been there for me. I don't know if that tells you something about me.
It does, and I know Kathleen's got some more questions lined up for you, but I want to throw a quick one in. Just reading on your website, you said you'd moved 17 times in 14 years, and I've lived in 4 different countries and moved, I'm not sure if it's 17 times, it's a lot, but I think you moved more in a short space of time than I did. How did you manage that? What were the challenges?
Well, my husband was in the United States Navy. And it seemed like every time he got an assignment, it was always cross country. And so we had 17 different addresses in 14 years. I thought it was fantastic because I never had to worry about deep housekeeping and cleaning the house because we got up and moved. So everything was cleaned all the time. But we did have an adventure in doing so. I have 2 sons who wondered how they were going to expose their children to what we've exposed them to. There were so many sights to see, so many things to do, and so many people to meet. But you know what? Wherever we go, we always have a friend.
Yes, I bet you do. Kathleen?
So Joanne, tell us a little bit. I mean, you're an author, and you began writing an incredible book on soldiers and Agent Orange and their traumatic experiences. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to write this book?
Wow. A lot of times I wonder in my life, why me? Why was I chosen? Why did God choose me to be the spokesperson? And I guess I still haven't found the answer. But what happened was my husband, we were married for 50 years. And he was dying from Agent Orange. From stage 4 lung cancer. And I had been a college president of a medical school where we did a lot. There was a lot. I had 150 doctors that reported to me. So I knew a lot about medicine. I kept on saying to him, were you exposed to Agent Orange? Is there something the matter? Because I was looking at what was happening to him and I couldn't believe it. So in the meantime, I took care of him for 3 years. He was supposed to live 24 hours and we passed that. And then he was supposed to live 2 months. And then I got him to live 3 years. And wow. He had a very good life. And so I was very proud of that he got to experience that. But in the meantime, I kept on asking him, where were you? Where were you? So just before he died, 4 days before he died, he signed a claim for the government. And I wanted to see where the ship was. So I started to ask questions. I interviewed about 50 sailors on board. All I wanted to do was to put the ship in brown water because you see, the United States doesn't give any kind of benefits to sailors. They give them to Marines, Air Force, any of those that have boots on the ground, but not to sailors. They said they were never exposed. There's nothing there. So my thing was to put them in what they call brown water, which is very limited. When I went to look, there were no deck logs for 1 year. The National Archives came back to me and said that they were missing and classified. Well, I'm a PhD, I'm a doctor, and I thought, wait a second, how could it be missing and classified? That just piqued my interest even more. So I started this crusade to start to interview sailors. I just picked up the phone. Now, here I am, they don't know me. I picked up the phone, called them all over the United States. And I said, can you tell me where you were? Well, you know, I get off the phone. I had many tearful times because I get off the phone and after talking to them, they would all begin by telling me, I was 18 years old and I've never told anyone this, never. And they told me. Well, I started to put their stories together. And I thought, oh my God, these poor sailors. And I cried with them and we kept on moving on and going forward. Well, pretty soon, by happenstance, again, my life has been full of luck. This woman who I talked to in Blue Water Navy had a toothache and she couldn't address my question. So she said, I'm going to pass you on to this other gentleman and he can help you. So this gentleman from Colorado and I start talking. He asked me one question. He said, why can't you get the deck logs? So I sat down and I wrote him. It was the first time in 5 years, because I had a secret for 5 years. I told him what I knew. Never had I told anyone before. He took what I did. I put it all together. I put a package together. They took it up to Dr. Shulkin, the head of the VA, and they took it to the CIA. Yes, the CIA confirmed it. Dr. Shulkin approved benefits for the 350 men on the ship.
Wow.
And myself.
Good.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What an
Wow.
incredible story. And Joanne, I must ask, I mean, when you're picking up the phone and you're calling all these soldiers and a lot of them, I mean, my own dad is a veteran, so I know that some of the traumatic experiences that he's witnessed. How was it you were able to get these soldiers to open up about something so traumatic? Well, how, it sounds like it was easy for them to open up to you because that's just who you are, but was there, how
it had to be the hand of God. It had to be, because you know, my significant other said, why do they tell you? I said, I have no idea. The only thing is that I've been there with them. I understand them, and I'm not there to judge them. There's no penalties for them. They had to tell someone, and I happened to be the person there.
Wow.
Sounds dramatic, huh?
Yeah.
We went through 5 extremely traumatic years.
Wow, 5 years. That is really a crusade in the true sense of the word. Well done, Joanne.
It didn't stop then. It didn't stop then, because after we got the benefits, they came back to me and they said, please tell our story.
Okay. Yeah.
And I laid in bed many nights, 2 a.m. in the morning, getting up, pacing, saying, how could I tell their story? How could I do this? So I decided that I had to tell their story. They got my benefits and made my life easier for the rest of my life. Even though I got them their benefits, it was a symbiotic relationship. And I needed to share their story. So I sat down one night and I started to write. And I wrote it as fiction. It's historical fiction. But if anyone ever, when I was going through 50 years with my husband, I never realized he had PTSD or the exposure to Agent Orange. And I thought, I'm a doctor. I'm in the medical field. I know a lot about medicine. And if I don't know, what about the wives that have no idea?
Yeah.
So I wanted to share that so that other people could see what it's like. A lot of people, when they read the book, can't read it. I've had people say, that's my life. And how did you know? And so it's a sad book, but it shows what PTSD is and what Agent Orange does.
Wow. Oh, that is incredible. And I think we're finding that more and more is being known about the prevalence of PTSD and the effects thereof as every year that goes by, because I was in a different part of the world, and I served in the military for part-time for 10 years in our terrorist war in Africa, and we didn't even talk about PTSD. It was very small compared to Vietnam, but it was still pretty savage and quite ugly. But it was just not even considered. You were told to just, suck it up and get on with your life, sort of thing, which fortunately most of us did. But no, it seems that it did affect many of us in ways we're not sure of. I'm going to switch gears and ask you something. How did you find going back to school as now you're a married woman with children and a mature student is the way they term it, I think, and you're going back to school with people probably similar age to your own children? How did that work?
Wow, what an experience for me. I was fortunate enough to work for IBM.
Right.
And IBM had benefits for going back to school. They paid for everything. I thought, I can't resist this.
Sure.
So at night, I would finish my job and then I would go to school. And it was funny because I remember the first night that I came home after I had an accounting test. And my 2 teenage boys were waiting for me at the door. And they said, we want to see your test. How did you do? And I ended up with a B. And they said, that's not good enough. You need to get an A. So we'll do the dishes for you.
Right.
And I'm sorry, Kathleen.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you have a PhD. What is your PhD in?
It's organization and management.
Wow.
Yes. I'm addicted to education. I tell you, I think it's the best thing in the world. I felt like I was the first woman in my family to get my master's. And now I have many other women in my family who have master's degrees.
Very good.
They still won't go for the PhD though.
Yeah. Quick one. When you were moving and your boys were young, did you feel, because you were strong in education, did you feel that gave them some advantages over youngsters who had never moved, had always lived in the same environment?
Peter, that's a great question, because in the beginning when we were doing that, I thought, oh my gosh, they're not going to have any stability. Matter of fact, I didn't work. I stayed home because I felt that they needed some stability. However, as they grew up and they got older, I thought this was the best education they could ever have, because they saw so much and they knew things, and they were all over the country. So it's like now they say to me, Mom, how we do this for our children? And I said, we were lucky. So, but does that answer your question, Peter?
It does, and it ties in with what one of our guests a couple of weeks ago, Verna, she and her husband worked in IT and they were able to work remotely. So they took, 6 years, Kathleen? They traveled all over the state. They were Canadian, but they came down to your country and traveled all over the States as far as Hawaii in a camper van, and then went to Europe and I think they took their camper van with them and traveled over Europe for altogether 6 years. And they said they didn't homeschool their kids, they world schooled their kids. And they said, looking back, the kids were really appreciative of what they learned on those trips. So thank you.
But it continued, because I have now this year or last year finished my 7th continent, putting feet on all 7 continents.
Have you really?
That was a goal for me. Yes.
Yeah. Well done.
When I was 9 years old, my father used to read the Funkin' Wagnall Encyclopedia. Do you remember that? I mean, It was this S&H Green Stamp Savings. And of course, he always would question me on it. And the very first ones that we talked about was Antarctica. And so from 9 years old, I dreamt about going to Antarctica. So after my husband passed away, and I met this other gentleman, and he was a world traveler who sailed the South Pacific for 4 years, and on a yacht. I know, yes. So he was just as adventurous. He said, "Let's go to Antarctica." We went on an expedition on a Russian boat, and a spy ship, basically, because they showed us what they did.
Yeah.
And it was with all academics, and oh my God, it was so exciting, and it made us aware of our carbon footprint. And we came back, and we now live in an all solar home because we don't want to affect our Earth anymore.
Wow, Antarctica, that's good.
Antarctica, my goodness. So what was your favorite? What has been your favorite place then?
Antarctica?
It just like, okay, so Antarctica, now what is it about Antarctica? I hear that people who've been, I mean, it's the silence.
It's the mysticism of it. When you go there, you have to go through the Drake Passage. The seas were 47 feet high, and the winds were 74 miles an hour to cross the Drake Passage. And so it's an experience, but as soon as you see your first iceberg, all of that goes away, and you are just mesmerized by Antarctica and the different faces of it.
Yeah.
So it's really just a sight to see. And then when you put feet on the ground, oh, that was so exciting.
Amazing.
And how long were you there?
Well, we were there for 10 days. So we put feet on the ground twice a day for 10 days. And the temperature was 34 and the water was 34. And the vistas were unbelievable, just unbelievable. You never saw vistas like you saw there. So it was quite exciting.
Yeah, I bet it was. Wow. And while you were on travel, you also mentioned on your bio that you went on a safari in Africa. And of course, I lived in Africa practically all my life until a few years ago. So whereabouts did you go on safari?
Well, we went to Kruger National Park.
Kruger, right?
Kruger, yes. And but what we do when we travel is, and we both just like to travel. We're both retired professors, so when we go there, we split it up, and we do half of it would be cultural. So, like we had dinner with the family in Cape Town, and they cooked us dinner. They cooked 10 of us dinner, and we integrated with them. And then we went on safari. And of course, safari, oh my God, you've lived in Africa. You know what it's like when you see a leopard just right next to you, or an elephant that thinks that you're their mate. It's so spectacular. And then you know that they're free, that they're not caged, and that they roam all over. So my experience on safari was, I'm going back, and I haven't finished that yet, and the Serengeti is next.
Oh, yes, that'll be good. That'll be good. I was very fortunate that when I was doing my military service in Rhodesia, as it was at the time, I walked through the Yakking National Park, which I think is after the Kruger is the second biggest wildlife park in Africa. And I walked almost within touching distance of elephants with just 4 of us on patrol, and saw some amazing sights. So I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's lovely. Good. Kathleen, back to you. You wanted to ask Joanne something.
Well, as a published author now, what advice would you have for the up and coming authors? Do you have any advice for them?
Oh gosh, follow your heart. Follow your heart, and write from your heart, because you can't do it unless unless it's coming from within. I was up at 2 a.m. in the morning every morning writing, and I asked other authors, "What time do you get up to write?" At the best, 2 a.m. And it just seems that that's the time for me that things flowed. And I would go and I'd go to bed, and then I'd start dreaming about something. I'd say, "This dream is coming to me. I need to put it down." And that's what this book is about. This is about all of the people. I have a photographic memory, so I didn't even take notes. I just remembered all of the experiences that these sailors told me about. And if you've read my book, you'll know that they're pretty sincere.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Oh my goodness. Now, how was it that you were able to get it out there to the public? What was your way of marketing to get it out?
You know, my life is fortune. I'm telling you, I'm so blessed, just absolutely so blessed. It seemed like my son was reading Jim Strauss's things, and he goes, "Mom, why don't you contact them?" He did, and then I got a hold of Chuck, and then Nancy, and this group just grew, and it was like we all believe in this philanthropic being of paying back and giving to people. And that's what this whole thing was about. And that's what I said, if only one person reads this book and is helped by it, I've accomplished, I've met my goal. And so that's how I got into this group, and how fortunate.
Yeah.
Peter, you might want to mention to our viewers and to Joanne as well about our upcoming guests, Alan and Tara Canerva, who are specialists in trauma and PTSD.
That's right. They'll be on Thursday of this week, I think. And then, of course, we'll be on YouTube and our podcast channel. And they, as Kathleen says, they are specialists in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and they do a huge amount of work in counseling people who have suffered from PTSD and or other forms of stress. So that's going to be a good one for people to watch. And our little group, starting with Nancy, has grown and grown because we've had Chuck on the show. We had Anthony Mikowski, publisher, last week. Later on, very soon, we're going to have Lou and Karen McIntyre. And who else have we got? We got Diane Stevenson coming up in the not too distant future. I don't think we have a date for her yet, and a few others that Nancy has mentioned. So it's a really good group to be involved with. And I try and get on Chuck's call on a Monday evening when I can. I can't always make it, and that's always good value too. A quick one. We've got a little bit of time left, Joanne. Did you go to any other countries in Africa?
We just went to Johannesburg, the city in Johannesburg. South Africa is where
South Africa, okay.
Yeah, and of course, watching out the governments and what was happening and everything. Example, we just got back from Australia like four months ago. How lucky were we to take that window? Between the fires in Australia and virus, we were so fortunate, just so fortunate.
That's right.
So we just travel. We don't love traveling, and we're waiting for our next trip. Can't wait for this to all free up, and then let's get going again.
Get going.
And see the world, because that's how you learn and love it. Just love it.
Absolutely. And so your next one going to be the Serengeti in Africa, or somewhere else?
We're waiting for the Serengeti because I have to see the migration. I have to see that. We both are photographers too, so our walls are filled with the places that we've been and the photographs that we took, and that's how our house is filled with. I don't know if you can see, but in the back I have my zebra friend up there, and we just put our house as a place for where we've been, memories for where we've been.
Right. Very good. Very good. Kathleen, have you got any more you want to ask Joanne? I have one. Is there another book in the pipeline?
Oh, yeah.
I say no, but other people say yes.
Well, let's hope there is. And how can our listeners contact you? They could get onto your website if they want to buy your book, or is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. And they can also get on my website, https // JoanneNesbitt.com. And they can go there. If they have questions, they can email me. And it's Joanne, JOANNE, 2887 @att.net. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll, for our viewers, if you didn't catch that, it'll be underneath your video here on the screen on YouTube. You can pick it up from there. It will also be in the description on both the podcast channel and YouTube. Joanne, thank you so much. That's really interesting talking to you, and we really enjoyed that. So to everyone, thank you very much, and until next time, that's the end of this episode of the Yakking podcast.